Ink ribbon.
Resident Evil has brought a lot to the table as a franchise, and one of the things that seems to not get the love and attention it deserves is the fact that it has consistently had some of the most functional and best looking UI of any horror game inventory screen. UI stands for user interface and sometimes can also be called UX, which is short for user experience, which are both used very well throughout the games. And this video was requested by Gold Tier member Mohammed Malala. I'm very excited because I have always wanted to do a video about this. As far as I could tell, the origins of the inventory screens go back to the late 80s and early 90s, which brought a lot of really amazing UI designs for menus, primarily the Japanese PC-98 games, most of which were visual novels, but just look at these elaborately decorated frames. If you ever want to see more of these, just search for images of PC-98 games and you'll find a treasure trove. I even tried using one in a little demo I made, and I think it adds a really cool aesthetic to game screens when used right. That brings us forward to the first inventory screens of the franchise in 1, 2, and 3. Somehow the design of the menus really fits into the Resident Evil aesthetic, but in kind of an unexplainable way. No grunge, no blood, just clean and sleek blue menus with metallic borders. These stayed for the first 3 games with minimal changes, though probably the most notable difference worth mentioning is the ability to examine things in 3D versus a detailed image. I always loved being able to examine objects and rotate the 3D models, but that's just me. The feature to examine items in 3D wasn't brought back until Code Veronica, but in that game it made sense since every item was actually modeled in 3D already. In 2 and 3, most of the items don't physically exist or are just simplified models. For example, when the spade key drops from the fountain, if you pause, you'll notice that the key is actually an old key design from the beta prototype. But it's so small and unnoticeable it doesn't matter unless you're obsessed with tiny details in video games. Joni's arms. What? Anyway. By the way, if you want to see more of those in-game models that you don't normally get to see close up, I did a video for both the second and third game. And in the third game, a tornado hit in the middle of the video. I'm not even joking.
So I'm literally under my house right now.
Now here's a fun UI design word for you. Diegetic. And the opposite is non-diegetic. Basically what diegetic means is it completely fits into the gameplay without breaking immersion. And non-diegetic would be the opposite. A good example of diegetic would be something like the health meter in Dead Space being built into Isaac's suit. Resident Evil is interesting because it's a little bit of both. I love when people playing the classic Resident Evil get scared and they end up hiding in the inventory screen. While the menus can break the illusion, they also have immersive elements like the ECG, which fits the aesthetic nicely. ECG being electrocardiogram. It's not really used for measuring injuries in real life, it's mostly just for measuring normal heart rhythm, but it can detect things like stress and shortness of breath. As a fun little experiment, I wanted to hear what these would sound like as heartbeats, so here's fine. Caution. Danger. And poison. In Resident Evil Remake and Zero, we got a new inventory that had a very fitting aesthetic for the dusty mansion, utilizing a lot of earth tones as well as more textures like paper, and it has a little bit of a typewriter feel with some of the buttons. And they brought back the feature to examine models, but this time added special animations for certain items. Did you know that when you examine the ink ribbons, they actually open? The Achilles heel of all of these so far is having limited spaces, but limited spaces are also a major design feature. Some love it and some hate it, but it is what it is. I personally don't really know how I feel about it. On one hand, it forces you to really get to know the game and strategize which items are worth picking up and which ones you have to leave behind. But on the other hand, it's really annoying when you just can't pick up one tiny little key that you need, even though Jill could probably just put it in her bra or something. Take a moment to give appreciation for Resident Evil Outbreak's inventory screen. It had to be transparent since gameplay couldn't be paused, and the player has to see what's going on. Also, it somehow uses only 4 spaces per character while also using a similar system to Zero, but better, where you can just swap items when you pick them up. That way you can still pick up items if your inventory is full. It also incorporates the virus meter, so you can keep an eye on your character's infection status, and the meter works by having more cells appear in the circle, as well as changing color as you get more infected. And it was just a really cool and unique, interesting touch, even though it was just a timer in disguise. And on top of that, it uses the classic sound effects, which was just icing on the cake. Now for a while, things were good, but then, for better or worse, we got the puzzle-style attaché case Leon wielded in Resident Evil 4. For some people, it was fun and added a whole new element to the gameplay, and for others, it just became a giant chore. I personally found it enjoyable to take a break from the main game and just play some inventory Tetris, but I get it. Thankfully, they added the handy auto-sort feature in the remake, so everyone's happy now. And from innovation sometimes comes bad, not good ideas. I'm trying to be objective here, but please raise your hand if you didn't like the inventory system for Resident Evil 5 or 6. While the quick hotkeys were a really handy feature, a feature that is still used today, the inventory itself was just not the best. I'm not sure if 5 or 6 had a worse layout, but I think I'd say 6 on that one. While 5 was just really boring, Resident Evil 6's menus were as overly complicated as Leon's morning hair routine. I will give 6 credit for some of the aesthetics implemented. I'm not sure why everyone has transparent phones from the future, but the Frutiger Arrow aesthetic is really strong here. I mean, look at Ada's phone. It's a cube. It's literally a cube that unfolds and apparently is made of some sort of glass. But you'll notice her inventory matches it. Same with both Sherry and Leon's HUD matching their phones, while Chris and Piers have this very Call of Duty military menu. Man, Resident Evil 6 just threw everything at the wall, didn't they?
Take that son of a bitch right out of the sky!
And that brings us to today, the modern day inventory systems of Resident Evil 2 and 3 remakes. We originally saw the first iterations of this in Resident Evil 7, but it was very basic and simplified in comparison. But they've since evolved it into what we have now, and I personally think they bring together all the elements of the inventory systems from the classic games while streamlining and refining them. Just like before, there's a limited amount of inventory spaces. However, now you can pick up not one, but several side packs to expand your inventory, which allows you to pick up more items and makes the game a little less stressful. And from a game development standpoint, in case you didn't know, inventory systems are one of the most difficult and frustrating things to make, especially when you have this much complexity. That's why you usually see very basic inventory screens in a lot of indie games, including mine. It's not because indie devs are lazy, it's because it's really difficult. And I'm only saying this to help you understand why I appreciate the inventory screens of Resident Evil so much. So when it comes to Resident Evil games, which inventory system was your favorite? Or maybe you preferred the inventory systems from other games like Silent Hill. Do you prefer getting a detailed image of an item when you examine it, or do you like rotating a 3D model to inspect it yourself? Let me know down in the comments, and be sure to put that like button in your inventory. You might need it later. Until next time, I'm Kai Morgan, and as always, thanks for watching Ink Ribbon.